I was perched on a stool at my favorite bar after work, sipping the one beer I allowed myself while waiting for the bowling alley next door to open. A very attractive woman with dark hair was sitting at the other end of the bar, trying to catch my attention. Eventually, Sam, the bartender, placed another beer in front of me, but I turned it down. "It's not on the house, Ted," Sam said. "It's from the lady at the end of the bar. Thank her for me and return her money. You can put it on my tab and do whatever you want with it," I replied. After a few minutes, the brunette came over and sat on the stool next to me. She had a sweet face and clear eyes. "Maybe you shouldn't be sitting here," I said, taking another sip of beer. "It wasn't very polite not to accept the beer I bought you," she replied. "Is there a reason why you don't like me?" "I really like you, but I don't know you. I have trust issues when it comes to women. My life is simple now, and I want it to stay that way. If you stay in this bar long enough, another day will come and you can buy him a beer. I'll probably be nicer, younger, richer, prettier, and I'll be fine in bed." "What if I just like you?" "What is it?" she asked. "That's not going to happen, so why bother?" I replied. "You don't know anything about me, so how do you know that we can't at least be friends?" she asked in response. "Let's see," I said, turning to face her. "You're somewhere between 25 and 30 years old. You're educated, have a good job, and a nice figure that you'd like to show off. But you're hesitant because of a few minor flaws that you fixate on. You're either married and contemplating cheating, or you've recently divorced. You consider yourself conservative, but like to think you have a bit of a wild side. And..." I paused, tilting my head slightly to the left before continuing. "You're actually much wilder than you realize. You just need someone to bring that out. Your ex or current husband was, or is, much older than you, and I remind you of either him or someone else. How close am I?" "Almost spot on," she replied. "My husband passed away just over a year ago. I finally stopped wearing the ring a week ago. Towards the end, there was no love left between us, but when he got sick, I stayed and cared for him until the end, out of respect, if nothing else. After he was gone, even though, as you hinted, I did feel like he was holding me back, I couldn't bring myself to look for someone new so soon after he passed. But when I saw you, you reminded me so much of my first boyfriend, the one I left behind to marry my late husband. Now, I'm back at work in a job I thought I'd enjoy, but right now, I'm not so sure." "And what about you?" she asked. "You seem a bit young to have decided to be alone for the rest of your life. Don't you have needs? I thought all men had urges. And when I look at you, I don't see the tough, hard-hearted guy you're pretending to be," she said. "I see someone who's truly a romantic at heart. I think you've been hurt, and you're trying to put up walls. But those walls aren't there to keep others out like you believe. They're there to stop you from getting hurt again. So what made you this way?" I raised my beer so the bartender could see it. "Another round, Sam, and maybe get one for the lady too." Sam brought us fresh drinks, and I began my story. "Maybe you're right about me being a romantic, but that's not something I want people to know. I don't see myself as a romantic, more like a fool because I really got played. Until about a year ago, I was happily married to the woman of my dreams, but that dream turned into a nightmare on national TV. So now, pretty much everyone knows how much of an idiot I was. I met Ellie around 6 years ago at a party, and it was love at first sight. I know some people don't believe in that sort of thing, but the moment I saw her, I became a believer. One minute, she was a complete stranger, and the next, she was all that mattered to me. To me, she was the most beautiful girl in the world, though in reality, she might have been a 6. She had fiery red hair and pretty green eyes, almost cat-like and so expressive that I could always tell what mood she was in, and almost what she was thinking, just by looking at them. Her lips were irresistible, always tasting like strawberries, and though she had quite a few freckles, she barely weighed 96 pounds soaking wet. She had the most beautiful, shapely legs I'd ever seen, and a cute little bubble butt. She wasn't particularly well endowed up top, but Damn, I loved that woman. Within a year of meeting, we were married. I was an engineer for a large manufacturing company that made automotive suspension components and steering knuckles for several major car manufacturers. Ellie was a part-time waitress, and after we got married, she became a stay-at-home wife. Our plan was to enjoy married life for a while before starting a family, because we'd seen the struggles her sister and brother-in-law went through after getting married because of an unexpected pregnancy. Their life was a constant argument, and we wanted to be smarter about it. Ellie's family consisted of her sister, brother-in-law, and a few cousins scattered around. They lived in a trailer park about 5 miles from us. In fact, Ellie had lived with them until we got married. I think they were happy about our marriage, not only because it gave them more space in the trailer after Ellie moved out, but also because they could come over and use our pool whenever they wanted. Ellie and her sister Sally were inseparable, so whenever I couldn't find Ellie, I just had to call Sally or drop by the trailer, and there she'd be. Most evenings when I got home from work, Ellie, Sally, and Sally's husband, Billy, would be in our living room. Ellie and Sally were devoted fans of the classic American daytime trash TV, religiously following shows like Jerry Springer, Judge Judy, The People's Court, and, of course, The Maury Show. I never really got into that kind of entertainment, being occupied with my job and everything, but I was happy that Ellie had something she enjoyed, something that kept her from feeling lonely when we were apart. Most of the time, she had dinner ready when I got home, and after eating, we'd settle in and spend time together. We both loved discovering new things and exploring the countryside. Ellie was all about taking in the scenery, while I loved driving my Arctic White 2008 Mustang GTCS convertible, also known as the California Special GT, anywhere, for any reason. Honestly, that car and Ellie were tied in a close race for my affection, so having them both out on the road was a dream come true. The car was equipped with a cherry bomb exhaust system, which, though it messed with California's emission standards, had an amazing sound. It also featured cross-drilled and slotted rotors, with the brake calipers painted to match the Arctic White body and all the glass and lights blacked out. I still love that car to this day, but anyway, back to Ellie. Ellie was a force to be reckoned with in bed. She was always energetic and receptive, always ready for action. Even at gatherings with our friends, she found an excuse for us to sneak away and have some fun exploring the nearby bushes. It rarely happened that we weren't close at least once a day, even after 5 years of living together. However, if it wasn't for Sally, none of this would have happened. I don't have any dislike for Sally. She's an attractive woman in her own way, and she has one of the most sincere hearts I've ever known. She looks like Ellie, but a few years older, a little taller and a little fuller. Sally flirted with me a couple of times, and until everything went down the drain, I honestly thought she was checking me out to see if I would cheat on her sister if I got the chance. Naturally, I turned her down both times, and life was wonderful. About a year ago, things took a turn when Sally and Billy started arguing much more than usual. These weren't their typical argue-then-make-up fights either. The arguments became more prolonged and began affecting those around them. Eventually, Sally decided to take matters to the highest, most reputable place she could think of. I assumed they were going to see a marriage counselor, but I was wrong. Sally had reached out to the Maury Show and was scheduled to appear on an episode about cheaters. She arranged for Billy to take a lie detector test on national TV to determine if he was cheating on her. Sally also suspected that he had cheated with multiple women and even got one of the girls in their trailer park pregnant. Billy, of course, insisted that he was completely innocent and claimed Sally was just upset because, at 30, she felt she was losing her youth and wanted to keep him. The girl Sally suspected of being involved with Billy was also going on the trip. She lived in the same trailer park and was only 19 years old. To me, the whole situation seemed like a circus, and I couldn't help but quietly laugh at it all. I was fairly certain Billy was guilty, but I kept that to myself. I was also relieved that Ellie and I weren't experiencing anything close to those kinds of problems. I wished them well and promised to DVR the show so we could all watch it together sometime in the future. That evening, when Ellie and I were having fun in bed, Ellie made a stunning impression on me. She wanted to go to Connecticut to shoot the show, and not only did she want to, she felt she needed to be there. In case Billy got caught cheating or was involved in something bad, Sally would need support, and Ellie wanted to be there for her. In addition, Ellie had a unique opportunity to see her favorite show being produced and taped. It was a dream vacation for her. Although she was not involved in the investigation or the episode, and the TV company would not cover her flight or hotel stay, I assured her that we could afford to send her. Besides, when she made me feel good, I couldn't refuse her anything. At the same time, I realized that she expected me to take a few days off and go with her. She would never have left me at home alone, and she would have flown to another state. She said she trusted me, but she didn't want to risk me being tempted by clubs or easy women in her absence. She was convinced that Billy was in trouble because he had too much free time. I suggested that maybe Billy needed a job, but she just laughed. She also reminded me that in the 5 years that we were married, we never went without intimacy, unless one of us was sick or injured, and she wasn't going to start now. A few days later, we all flew to Stamford, Connecticut, to shoot the show. An assistant producer from the show's team met us at the airport. Ellie and I went straight to our hotel, and the show's cast members went to a production meeting to prepare for filming the next day. As soon as we got to our hotel room, Ellie bounced vigorously on the bed, trying to act casual while watching me. I could feel her eyes on me as I unpacked our bags. "Shouldn't this be a female role?" I asked. "I'll show you what a woman's role is," she replied with a grin. After that, I plunged into a pleasant rest. That's how it was when the messenger entered the room. Ellie didn't lose her head. With one hand, she pulled a wallet out of my pants pocket and handed it to me. I took out a $5 bill and handed it to him. He crossed the room, took the tip, and left, keeping his eyes on Ellie. "Enjoy it," he said, quietly closing the door behind him. The pressure was building. Unable to control myself, I grabbed Ellie, and we had this happen. "Damn it. Are you guys doing this here too?" Sally said loudly, entering the room without knocking. "If you'd waited a little longer, sis, you'd have seen a lot more," Ellie grinned. "What are you even doing here? Shouldn't you be in the studio?" "They need Billy more than they need me. He is undergoing a lie detector test. All they had to do was ask me a few questions and shoot a short piece about what I thought he was up to. They needed more from this girl than they needed from me," Sally said. She looked curiously at Ellie lying on the bed. "Ellie, what's that on your face?" "Your brother-in-law's white matter. She ended up on top of me," Ellie laughed. "Dear God, aren't you going to wash it off or something?" Sally asked, then changed the subject. "Do you really think Billy is cheating on me?" Ellie didn't answer but squeezed my hand tighter. I think we both knew the answer to that question. It was clear from Ellie's reaction that she believed Billy was probably cheating on her sister. "Sweetie, I can't say for sure whether or not your man is cheating on you, but remember, we're sisters. We'll support each other through everything. If he is cheating and you decide to kick him to the curb, I'm here for you no matter what. If you and the kids need to stay with me and Ted for a while, we have plenty of space." Then she cuddled up beside me, snuggling into my side like a cat, with my drying spunk still on her face. "Ellie, you're really fortunate to have Ted who loves you so much. I can't imagine him ever cheating on you." "Can I tell you a secret?" she asked softly. "I already know," Ellie replied. "You tested him a couple of times, showing him your big breasts to see if he'd cheat if he had the chance. He told me both times. I also know you never would have gone through with it if he had fallen for it. You love Billy too much to cheat on him. So, if he did cheat, would you take him back? Probably, eventually. But he'll need to make some changes in our life. He'll have to promise never to cheat on me again, and if he does, we're done. Plus, he'll need to at least try to find a decent job. We've been living in that trailer for far too long, and it's not fair to the kids to keep them in those conditions. But since we've been together for so long, I'm not sure how I'd manage without him. No one is perfect. A man will make mistakes now and then. I don't want to throw away our whole marriage over this, but he has to change. Ellie gently squeezed my hand again and started to softly purr. I covered her with the sheet and went to the bathroom to get a warm, soapy washcloth. I carefully wiped her face and kissed her lightly on the forehead as Sally looked on. "You really do love her, don't you?" Sally asked. I nodded and smiled. "You and I aren't like Billy and me. Sometimes I think we're just together because we've been together so long that we don't know how to be apart. But you truly love my skinny, flat-chested little sister. I had no idea." Then she stood up and went back to her room. "I'm glad she's finally gone," Ellie whispered as she pulled the comforter over herself. "And just so you know, I really love you too, till death do us part." The next morning, we all had breakfast together before the taping. Two things caught my attention immediately. First, Sally had had her hair done and received a makeover. She looked amazing. Well, at least amazing for Sally. On the other hand, Billy appeared as though he hadn't slept at all the previous night. He looked at Sally with genuine fear of losing her. Marilyn, the supposed other woman he had been with, wasn't with us, but given her age of 19, we didn't expect her to be. We were transported to the studio in a stretch limo. Billy, Sally, and Marilyn went in one direction, while Ellie and I went in another. The production facility resembled a large warehouse, with the TV show set at its core. Around it were viewing rooms, conference rooms, dressing rooms, and various other spaces. The set was surrounded by cameras and a flurry of people with headsets, adjusting various equipment. At the back, there was a recording booth where technicians managed camera angles and audio levels. Producers, directors, gophers, and security personnel continuously moved through the chaos. When you watch the show, it feels like each segment lasts only a few minutes. After seeing the show a few times while I was homesick or on vacation, I genuinely thought we could come to the taping and be back at the hotel for some serious fun within an hour or two. However, we were there for 3 hours before they even began filming our segment. Sally was the middle segment of 3 filmed that day. The first featured a teen mother who claimed her neighbor's husband, a Protestant minister, had gotten her pregnant. He insisted that as a man of God, he would never commit adultery. Both he and his wife spewed venom at the teen mother, dismissing her as a woman of ill repute and belittling her word compared to that of a respected Christian minister and his devout wife. The minister failed the lie detector test, and DNA proved he was the baby's father. His wife attacked both him and the girl on stage, requiring restraint. The highlight of the segment was Maury's announcement, which was delivered with more authority than you'd expect given his height. The minister, already nervous about failing the lie detector, seemed to be silently pleading with God to change the DNA results. He tried to hold his wife's hand, but she wouldn't let him. He understood that if the baby were confirmed as his, both his marriage and career would be over. His wife, visibly upset, darted her gaze between her husband and the girl. Her eyes narrowed in anger. Meanwhile, the girl sat back in her chair with an air of indifference, as if she were at ease with the unfolding truth. She seemed to accept her wrongdoing, finding some comfort in the fact that the truth was coming out, and that she would have proof of paternity to claim child support, which would alleviate some of her burdens. Under the intense studio lights, the room fell silent as Maury began. In the case of 10-month-old Amber Marie." He paused dramatically before continuing. "Reverend Pritchard, you are the father." The former clergyman immediately leapt up and ran backstage, with his wife trailing behind, yelling about divorcing his unfaithful self. On stage, the mother of his child erupted in a provocative victory dance, so suggestive it would have embarrassed a stripper. The audience cheered, and I found myself caught up in the moment. Ellie nudged me and remarked, "There was no need to be staring at that girl when I already have someone who can perform a better dance just for me." Sally then emerged and took a seat in one of the chairs on stage, engaging in a conversation with Maury. She shared that she and Billy had been together for 7 years and had 5 children. She described their life in a trailer and mentioned that Billy had never had a job, yet she loved him all the same. The audience responded with cheers, admiring her loyalty despite their circumstances. However, she went on to discuss how their intimacy life had deteriorated recently and revealed rumors that Randy might be cheating on her and possibly had even impregnated another woman in the trailer park. The audience responded with boos and frowns, though no one had prompted them to react this way. The monitor then showed Billy's taped interview, where he expressed his disappointment that Sally would think he could cheat on her. He claimed that Sally and their children were his everything, and that if she made him take a lie detector test, it would signal a lack of trust, leading him to seriously consider ending their marriage. The audience booed him, but Sally appeared somewhat uncertain. It was clear she loved Billy deeply and wanted him back, regardless of the situation. While she wanted to address his behavior and make it clear she wasn't naive, the idea of truly divorcing him had never been a serious consideration for her. Beside me, Ellie commented that the cheating bastard deserved whatever came his way if he had indeed gotten that other woman pregnant. She squeezed my hand and went backstage to comfort Sally as the techs moved a chair out for Marilyn. Marilyn then appeared on stage. The audience reacted with as much hostility towards her as they had towards Billy's tape. She took a seat and immediately began discussing how Billy had been involved with not just her, but several other women in the trailer park. Although she didn't have feelings for Billy, she wanted him to get a job and start paying child support for his most recent child. She even apologized to Sally for her actions, but claimed Billy had told her that he and Sally were headed for a divorce anyway. Marilyn asserted with absolute certainty that Billy was the father of her baby, though I was puzzled because outside of trailer parks, 100% is the maximum certainty you can have. Marilyn's declaration naturally made Sally cry, and Maury had to console her. To my surprise, Ellie ran up on stage to hug her sister and try to comfort her. "That cheating bastard is no good," Ellie said. I knew we'd need to record this episode when it aired, as it was Ellie's dream come true to be on the Maury show. We might end up watching it every day for the rest of our lives. Finally, they brought Billy out. I felt sympathy for him as he walked down the ramp onto the set, facing a crowd that clearly despised him despite not knowing him personally. The audience showed no kindness toward Billy at all. Even Marilyn, who shared the blame, received more support, or at least less hostility, than poor Billy did. Maury began questioning Billy, who denied everything. He claimed he never cheated on Sally and had never had intimacy at all. He also denied being unemployed, insisting he was merely between jobs, which was confusing, but he was clearly flustered. At one point, I expected him to deny even being named Billy. Billy stated he didn't know Marilyn personally, but had heard from friends that she was promiscuous, likening her to free internet service because she was so available. Marilyn reacted by hissing and lunging at him across the stage. Sally, despite her anger towards Billy, intervened to protect him, perhaps feeling that another woman shouldn't be hitting her man. Ellie quickly joined in to assist her sister, and security had to step in to break up the escalating chaos. With tensions high and the scene resembling more of a Jerry Springer episode than a Maury show, it was time for Maury to reveal the DNA test results. In the case of 3-month-old Stephen, Maury began, Billy, you are not the father. Marilyn jumped up in disbelief, shouting that the test was incorrect, and ran off stage. Meanwhile, Billy let out a sigh of relief and began celebrating on stage. We still have the results of the lie detector test to go over, Maury announced. The audience, still eager for scandal or drama, fell silent once more. We asked Billy if he had ever had intimacy with Marilyn. Maury continued. He denied it, but the lie detector showed that he was lying. He's been with her more than 10 times. Billy began to protest that the test was inaccurate. Sally leapt up and slapped him so hard that the sound echoed across the studio. Ellie had to pull her back into her seat. We then asked Billy if he had ever had intimacy with any woman other than Marilyn while married, Maury said. He said no. The lie detector showed that was a lie. There have been over 5 other women with more than 50 encounters. Sally was sobbing uncontrollably, and Ellie had to support her. Billy bowed his head and begged Maury to stop reading the results. The audience, however, was clamoring for more, and despite appearing concerned for Sally, Maury continued to reveal question after question. Each new disclosure seemed to push both Billy and Sally further down, but Maury pressed on. I felt sympathy for them, yet couldn't help but find the whole situation absurdly amusing. Sally suddenly erupted, shouting at Billy. Her anger was so intense that Maury had to step aside. "You're a jerk," she screamed. I knew they'd edit this out for the broadcast, but would make sure the viewers understood exactly what she said. "Who were they? I want to know who those women were who meant more to you than your own children, because I'm finished with you," Sally yelled furiously. "Yeah, you sick bastard," Ellie added. "You shouldn't talk, Ellie," Billy retorted. My heart sank, knowing what was coming. Like the first drop of rain after a distant thunderclap, the words came out. Billy looked at my wife and said, "Since we both know you were one of those women." The room fell silent instantly, and the tension was palpable. You could hear a pin drop. Cameras swiveled from Ellie to Sally and back to capture her reaction. Ellie let out a slow-motion scream of, "No!" and glanced at me across the room, but her eyes betrayed the truth. "If you don't believe me, ask your lie detector guy," Billy said. "He questioned me about sleeping with any of your family members." Sally turned on Ellie and started hitting her. Ellie, preoccupied with searching for me, didn't even attempt to defend herself. By then, it was too late. Unnoticed, I had quietly slipped out of the studio. I left the building, caught a taxi, and headed back to my hotel. Meanwhile, Maury's production team swiftly canceled the next segment to focus on the drama between Sally, Ellie, and Billy. I later learned that Ellie kept asking about me and my whereabouts, but was told I was backstage cooling off. I suspect they were lying to keep her there and prevent her from making a rash decision. They tried calling me repeatedly on my cell and at the hotel, but I ignored their calls. They wanted me to return to the studio and publicly unravel my marriage. I checked out of the hotel within an hour and went to the airport. Although my flight home wasn't scheduled for another 2 days, time needed for editing and possible reshoots, I managed to change my flight and leave within 90 minutes. Back at the studio, Maury's team of producers and counselors persuaded Ellie, Sally, and Billy to return to the stage. The audience was completely absorbed, their focus locked on the performance. Sally told Ellie and Billy that she never wanted to see either of them again. Billy pleaded for her forgiveness, vowing never to be with another woman again. He admitted he needed help, revealing he was an intimacy addict like Tiger Woods. A counselor from Maury's team volunteered to find a local therapy group for intimacy addicts. They convinced Ellie to give Billy one more chance for the sake of their children, who needed a father. It took a few days, but they also managed to get Sally to forgive Ellie, who was deeply unhappy. I didn't find out about any of this for about a week, and honestly, I didn't care. As soon as I got home, I contacted a lawyer and began divorce proceedings. It was tough, and I cried a lot, but I managed to get it done. Thankfully, we live in a no-fault state, so there was no need to prove anything. However, I had a tape of the show that could serve as strong evidence of her infidelity and my subsequent humiliation on national TV. To expedite the divorce, I agreed to a 50-50 split of all our assets, with the only exception being that she would get the house and relinquish any claim to my future earnings or retirement benefits. It should be straightforward. I had my lawyer arrange for an officer of the court to deliver the divorce papers to her at the airport. Driven by the same morbid curiosity that compels people to stare at car accidents, motorcycle stunts, and NASCAR races, I made sure to watch from a distance when the papers were served to her. My lawyer was beside me, and we were both stunned as my usually mild-mannered, sub-100-pound, soon-to-be ex-wife tore the papers into pieces and attempted to assault the process server. She completely lost control, and security had to be called. My lawyer and I quietly slipped out of the airport and headed back to his office for a meeting. "That woman is out of her mind," he said. "I might need to arrange for a personal protection or restraining order." "Don't worry," I replied. "I've temporarily moved into a hotel and am looking for a new house or condo in a different suburb." "Yeah, but you still work at the same place, and you drive that nearly neon-white Mustang. You won't be hard to find," he said, shaking his head. I took a couple of weeks off, but I wasn't about to give up my car. During that time, I found a new house. It wasn't as nice as the old one, but I had too many memories of Ellie in that house to ever go back. When I returned to work, Ellie was waiting for me in the parking lot. "Ted, I'm sorry. Please forgive me," she said. "You have to come home. I don't think I can live without you." I walked right past her. "Ted, at least talk to me. I swear it'll never happen again. I love you. I always have." "I don't care about Billy," she pleaded. "He means nothing to me." I suddenly lost my patience. I turned and snapped at her. "Don't say that, because you know it's not true. Billy must mean a lot to you, because he was worth more to you than I was. He was worth more than all the love I had for you, our marriage, our future, the kids we could have had. Maybe you should go back and sleep with him a few more times to get full value for what you gave up. Don't come back here, Ellie. I don't want to see you again. If you have anything to say to me, say it through my lawyer." "Ted, Sally forgave Billy. Do you remember when you and she were talking in our hotel room and you thought I was asleep? She told you then that she and Billy don't love each other as much as we love each other. If she can forgive him, even though he cheated on her far more times and with many more people than I did on you, why can't you forgive me this one time? I swear it will never happen again. I'll get down on my knees and beg you if I have to. You can't just throw away 5 years of happiness like that." "All right, Ellie," I said. "Get down on your knees." She knelt in front of me, and people started to watch us. "Please take me back, Ted. Don't divorce me. I love you," she said. "No," I replied, and walked into the building. I stayed late at work that evening, still cautious as I left. When I approached my Mustang, I noticed an old pickup truck parked right next to it. I looked around for Ellie and saw Sally sitting in the truck. "Ted, I understand how deeply she's hurt you," she began. "No one knows that pain better than I do. Billy has done this to me more than once, and I swear this will be the last time I take him back. My kids would be better off without a father than with one who cheats and has other children with different women in our neighborhood, especially one who can't seem to find a job or do anything productive. Despite the pain, I took him back because, in his own way, I know he loves me. It might not be as intense or fairy tale-like as what you and my sister have, but love in any form is rare and valuable. He might not be the best man in town or even in my trailer park, but he's mine. When I think about all the people who are alone and would give anything to have someone in their life, it makes forgiving him one more time a bit easier. People aren't perfect, Ted. We all make mistakes and have moments of poor judgment. But when you truly love someone, you have to overlook those human failings sometimes. Less than a month ago, I was certain you'd do anything for my baby sister. It's hard to believe you could switch off those feelings so quickly. What about all the time you've invested in your marriage? Was it all for nothing? What about the for better or for worse vows you made? I don't want to take up too much of your time, but there are 3 more things to consider. First, that girl loves you deeply and is hurting right now. She knows she messed up, and it will take time to repair things, but she wants to more than anything. You are her world. Second, she wasn't really having an affair. This is Billy we're talking about. He'll mess around with anyone. She isn't trying to replace you or fall in love with someone else. It was just a mistake, something to do while you were away. It didn't mean anything. I had to forgive both of them, and you only need to forgive Ellie. Lastly, no matter what you decide, please talk to her. She knows she hurt you, and it's eating her up inside. She thinks the world of you and feels terrible for what happened. It might not seem important to you, but give her a chance to apologize. And honestly, Ted, I think it would do you good too, because you don't look very happy either. She hugged me, got back in her truck, and drove away. That night, I reflected on everything that had happened in my life since I met Ellie. I thought about how much I loved her and how happy we had been until I discovered what she had done. I had truly been happy. I realized that I still didn't understand the reasons or circumstances behind her actions. If I had no intention of reconciling, those details wouldn't matter. But if there was even a small chance of saving our marriage, those things were important. The next morning, I called Sally. Billy answered, and as soon as I heard his voice, I hung up. Less than 2 minutes later, my phone rang. "Honey, were you trying to reach me?" Ellie asked, her voice filled with excitement. "Well, I started to explain. "Yes," she interrupted sharply. "Yes, what?" I asked. "Whatever it takes to get us back together, I'll do," she said. "I know I made a huge mistake, and I promise I'll never do it again. I'll do or say anything necessary if it means you'll give me another chance." What I was about to say was that I wanted to speak with Sally, I replied. "Oh," she said, clearly deflated that I wasn't calling to talk to her. "Ted, did I ever directly tell you how sorry I am, or that I miss you so much it's unbearable? Did you know that I feel like there's a void inside me?" she said quietly. "I'm sure Billy can fill that void for you," I said coldly. "Look, I didn't call to talk to you. Why aren't you at your house anyway? Can I just speak to Sally?" "Sally isn't here. She had to go to the school to talk to one of the kids' teachers. And when you mention my house, if you mean our house, it just doesn't feel like home without you. I can't stand being there, knowing you should be with me. Why do you need to talk to my sister anyway?" "Maybe I don't need to anymore. Ellie, I actually wanted to talk to her about what she said last night. It suddenly hit me that I don't know why you were with Billy, or if there were others. I also wanted to ask her how she managed to forgive that worthless jerk repeatedly, because I was considering the possibility of talking to you again. But if you were truly remorseful, you wouldn't be alone in that house with him right now, would you? There's no hope for us, Ellie. I see that now. Just sign the papers, and let's move on." There was a loud thud, followed by Ellie's screams and cries, and then I just hung up. About an hour later, Sally called me back. Her voice was very tense, and I could sense her anger. "Ted, why did you call her just to torment her?" she asked. "I know she hurt you, but I thought you were the mature one." She's worse now than before you spoke to her. I had to give her something to help her sleep. Sally, I didn't call her. I called to speak with you. Billy answered, so I hung up. Ellie called me back a few minutes later, and I told her I only wanted to talk to you. I wasn't ready to talk to her yet, but until she started speaking, I was starting to think there might be a chance. I explained slowly and calmly, hoping to soothe Sally. Sally, what time do you need to pick the kids up from school? I asked. 3:30, she replied. Why? I want to discuss everything with you. So put on a nice dress, and let's go out for lunch. You're still my sister-in-law for now, right? I asked. I don't have a nice dress, she said, sounding downcast. Okay, we'll just meet at the mall then, I suggested. North entrance, 40 minutes, and do your makeup like you did for the Maury show. When Sally arrived at the mall, she looked fantastic. Her lips had just a hint of a darker shade than their natural pink. Her eyes were subtly outlined, and the base she used was so light that her freckles, shared with her sister, were still visible. Her long, dishwater blonde hair was elegantly pulled back from her face. It almost made me wish I had fallen for her instead of Ellie. However, her clothes didn't quite match the makeup and hair. Why did you want me to put on my A Girl of Easy Virtue paint just to grab lunch at the mall? She asked. We're not having lunch at the mall, I replied. We're just meeting here. I guided her into a women's dress shop and had her try on a few outfits. The third dress, a floral print in gray with a black pattern, was the one I had in mind. It accentuated her figure while cleverly concealing the effects of having 5 children. The neckline was low enough to showcase her ample chest without revealing how much they had sagged. I suggested to the saleswoman that we also needed a new bra, stockings, and shoes. When Sally returned from the fitting room, the transformation was remarkable. The new bra not only lifted her breasts, but made them look stunning. Her waist appeared slimmer, and the higher heels enhanced her legs and even improved the way she walked, making her butt look better. Ted, I thought we were here to talk about my sister, not to play dress-up, Sally remarked. We'll take everything, I said, handing my card to the saleswoman. And she'll wear it out. We are going to talk about your sister and me, I assured Sally. But I want us to enjoy a nice lunch at a nice restaurant and relax. There are some things I need to ask you. The place I chose was just around the corner from the mall, a fantastic steakhouse, and Ellie's favorite restaurant. I got us a table and ordered for us. Sally glanced around, and I noticed others admiring her. I don't think she realized how beautiful she was. She deserved this, and I was just glad I could give her one afternoon away from the daily challenges she faced. Sally, you've been talking to both of them for the last 3 weeks. I know it must have been incredibly difficult for you. How did you find the strength not only to forgive them, but also to move on? I asked her. I love your sister. I've loved her since the day I first met her. Sometimes I feel like my heart is beating just for her. But at the same time, I'm angry at her. I can't bring myself to talk to her, because every time I do, I get so angry that I just want to explode. One moment I think about how great it would be to hug her again, and the next I imagine squeezing my fingers around her throat. I know you love Billy, but I'll never be able to be in the same room with him again without wanting to hurt him. Even if, and this is a very big if, Ellie and I manage to save our marriage, we still have to change something. There will be no more Christmas parties together, backyard barbecues, and you guys won't come to my place to swim and hang out. I'm always glad to see you and your children, but Billy will never cross my threshold again, and I won't come to you until you kick him out. It's not up for discussion, but no matter how much I love her, I just can't find the strength to forgive you. Something inside me doesn't want to let it go. I was hoping that you might have heard from them how it all started, when it started, how many people she was messing with and why. And most of all, I want to know how you can ignore what this jerk is doing to you and just get on with your life. Sally took another bite of her steak and stared down at her plate. She pretended not to notice the tears on my face, and I did the same with hers. Ted, I'm not as strong as you think I am. Every time he does this, it hurts me so much, she said. When we went to the show, I already knew I was going to take him back. I was ready to be angry if he had gotten that girl pregnant, but I was still going to take him back. I was prepared for him to be cheating on me with a few different women, but I swear to you, I had no idea Ellie was one of them. That hurt me deeply. I was even more angry at Billy, and I was really upset with Ellie. But despite everything, I still wanted Billy back. She placed her knife and fork down and leaned toward me. Ted, my mom passed away when Ellie and I were just 7 and 9 years old. Our dad had been unfaithful to her for as long as I could remember. At 9, it seemed normal to ask my mom where Dad was before she died. She would sadly tell me that he was with his other woman and his other kids. After she passed, Ellie and I pretty much had to raise ourselves. We learned a lot the hard way, what to do and what not to do, but we managed. I think I'm a bit like my mom. Even though I may not like some of Billy's behavior, I keep hoping he'll change or grow out of it as he gets older. He's not a bad or violent man. He's never hit me or the kids, even when he's angry. But he can't seem to stay faithful. Sometimes, I wish my kids had a father who could hold a steady job and bring home money, or that we had a nice house and more stability. But, when I look at my kids, I see his smile in each of them. He's a part of every one of them, so I can't imagine ever throwing him out. I promise to love him for better or worse, so I have to take the bad along with the good. As for Ellie, every day I still have moments when I want to lash out at her. I keep wondering how she could do this to me. I would never do that to her. Even when I was flirting with you, checking to see if you would accept my offer, I knew you wouldn't do it because you love Ellie too much. And also, Ted, whether you realize it or not, that's why it's so hard for you. It's because you love her so much. If that wasn't the case, we wouldn't be having this conversation. You would just bring the matter to a divorce and try to do it without giving her a penny. Right now, everything is still hard and painful, and your anger overshadows your love for her. It will take time for everything to level out, and only then will we know how it will end. If anger gets the better of you, you probably won't take her back, which could devastate my sister or drive her to the extreme. But if love wins, it will be even more difficult, because you will take it back, and with wounded pride, it will be an uphill struggle. But I truly believe that the people I saw in that hotel room 3 weeks ago won't let what they had die. I reached across the table, took Sally's hand, and kissed it. As we left the restaurant, I couldn't help but glance at Sally's long legs as they stretched out in the front seat of my Mustang. I dropped her off near her truck so she could be on time to pick up her kids. I hated what I was putting Sally through, but I needed to find out the truth. Later, I learned that she had caused quite a commotion at her kids' school, and even more so when she returned to the trailer park. As soon as she walked in, Ellie jumped up, demanding to know where she had been. Billy couldn't take his eyes off her and was getting visibly angry. "Both of you can relax," Sally said. "I went out to lunch with my brother-in-law." "Where did you get those clothes?" Billy asked. "Ted bought me a new outfit so we could go to a nice restaurant," Sally replied. "It was amazing. I had the best time of my life." "Ted should have taken you somewhere cheaper and brought enough food for everyone," Billy snapped. "Some friend he is." "Why would he want to be your friend?" Sally shot back. "Ted has done nothing but good for us since he started dating my sister. He's always helping us out, giving us money for this and that, and taking us places. I love you, Billy, but how did you repay him? You repaid his generosity by messing up the one thing he valued more than anything else in the world, his marriage. Just because our marriage doesn't mean much to you, doesn't mean that Ellie didn't matter to him. Newsflash, my husband, he's in a lot of pain right now. He's trying to stay strong, but he's not the same, and he may never be. Things around here will never be the same, even if he takes my sister back. So if I were you, I wouldn't plan on coming over to swim or watch football on that big flat-screen TV on Sundays. He's completely done with you. Billy, you're acting like I'm crazy, he said. I just slept with Ellie. Everyone was with Ellie, even Ted. So why shouldn't I be? Besides, there's nothing about her worth getting upset about. She doesn't even have a great figure. A man should try something new from time to time. I know I went overboard, and I told you that I plan to cut costs, but this is already over the line. Billy, Sally replied, Ted isn't just experimenting. He genuinely loves Ellie and doesn't want to share her with anyone else. He really sees something special in her, or at least that's how it used to be. That's what I wanted for my little sister, which neither my mother nor I ever had, a man who would put her first. And it's not just because of you. I'm mad at Ellie too, because no matter how much I care about you, the three of you aren't half as good as Ted. Maybe my sister just ruined her life because she couldn't keep her legs closed. What are you talking about, Sally? Ellie screamed. Ellie, I understand that you love Ted, but he's not like us. You might think he's just going to beat around the bush and trample you in the mud for a few weeks. But it's been almost a month. You need to face the fact that you may not be able to get him back. He really loved you, and although he knew it wasn't your first time when you started dating, he expected you to be faithful after the wedding. Was intimacy with him bad? Sally asked. It was wonderful, Ellie replied. I miss him so much that I just can't stand it. You have to help me, Sally. He doesn't even want to talk to me. If intimacy was so cool, then why were you with Billy? Sally asked. Because she's a girl of easy virtue, Billy interrupted her. She just wanted to deprive me of the opportunity to watch football on this big TV. And she's not just a girl of easy virtue. She's also a dumbass. She's not even a wimp. You don't need to push her at all. I bet he doesn't know about it, and I bet he doesn't even know she's in group sessions. Billy was on the verge of laughing. I could hear it in his voice. Ellie was silent, except for a few sobs, but Billy was relentless, mocking her mercilessly. It was clear that Billy liked to play the bully. All a guy has to do is walk up to her and start touching her lightly. Before you know it, they'll be in bed. It can be any guy, any age, any race, fat or thin, short or tall. And if Ted is so damn good at his job and all that, why doesn't he know that he's married to a girl of easy virtue? Maybe someone should tell him about it. If she loves him so much, why didn't she stop? I think I need to tell him so he knows what's really been going on all these years. It's wrong to keep him in the dark. Ellie, does he know that you slept with the priest at your wedding or with his boss? If you tell him any of this shit, I'll do something terrible, Billy, Sally snapped. I'm not going to let you ruin my little sister's life any more than you've already ruined it. And you, Ellie, get out of this trailer. Drive the car your man bought for you to the beautiful house he bought for you and wait for him to take you back. I'll keep trying to talk to him for your sake, but that's all I can do. I bet she's sleeping with him, Ellie, Billy snapped. I bet that's why he bought her all these clothes. I bet they've been sleeping together since you met him. Now that he's found out about us, he's decided to trade you for a real woman. Maybe that's why he doesn't want to talk to you, his wife, or me, his brother-in-law and friend. He only wants to talk to Sally. So, Sally, Billy grinned, does he only want you or does he also want my children? Are these kids even mine? It's damn funny that you dragged me to the Maury show to show our dirty laundry on national television, and when you got home, you found out that you were just as much a cheater as me. And just like your sister. I thought I was marrying a good man. Maybe I'll call Ted and see how much I can get out of him if I agree to trade you for this pincushion. I heard Sally cross the room quickly. Then, there was the unmistakable sound of her new heels clicking on the trailer floor. Then, I distinctly heard the sound of a slap. Let's get back to this conversation when Ellie has 5 children, and then we'll see which one is stronger. Billy, I love you, but you're an idiot. I've never cheated on you with anyone, not even Ted. And Ted loved Ellie so much that he worried about her almost as much as she worried about him. Do you know why he wanted to invite me to lunch? I'll tell you. Ellie, you already know that your husband is a very proud man. He can't just take you back, even if he wants to. He needs a reason or an explanation for why you did what you did. When you married him, you both made a lot of promises, and you broke one of the most serious of them. He looks at intimacy differently than you and Billy do. For him, it's not just an activity when he's bored. It's a connection between 2 people who love each other. The fact that one of you can be with someone else destroys this connection. The irony is how wrong you can be about people. I love you more than anyone in the world, Ellie. Even more than that idiot. And I know you've always felt like you were unlucky. So you started sleeping with every guy who looked at you to prove something. But I've always envied you because I thought that maybe I have a good figure. But you have brains. Now, you know what your brother-in-law thinks of you, me and Ted. The man you practically sacrificed your marriage for views you as just another woman he can sleep with whenever he pleases. As for me, his wife, I'm seen as an old, used-up woman whose only value is taking care of his children. He's willing to exchange me for you if Ted offers him some money or a TV. And then there's Ted. Ellie, he's deeply hurt because of you. But right now he's precariously balanced on a slippery edge. It wouldn't take much for him to fall either way. You need to find him, keep calling him, and plead with him to take you back. You know Ted would do anything for you. Get him to move you as far away from here and from us as possible. Ellie, Sally said slowly, I need you to understand something important. Even after everything you've had with Billy, you know that I would never sleep with your man. I'm not that kind of woman. Deep down, ask yourself, how much does Ted really love you? Do you really believe that he would try to be with someone else? It's just not going to happen. So, nothing happened between Ted and me today. We mostly discussed what needs to be done to get him to take you back. But if today has had any effect on your life, I have to admit that I'm jealous. Do you realize how wonderful today was? We went to the mall, and he sat there while I tried on clothes until we found the dress he wanted me to wear. Then he bought a dress, shoes, stockings, and underwear. It wasn't just the clothes. The point was that he was interested in seeing me at my best and making me happy. When people looked at me, I smiled because I knew they could see that I had a man who treated me like I was special. You probably take things like this for granted, but most women would treasure it. You have no idea how lucky you are that he still loves you. And you risked it all for Billy and a bunch of worthless guys who probably don't even remember your name. Please don't be so stupid. Don't become one of those desperate women in a trailer park who sleep with every man you meet. Don't grow up with a bunch of kids who don't even know who their fathers are. Don't stay alone, regretting what you once had and what you gave up. You don't know what you have until it's over, and you're on the verge of losing your only chance at a wonderful life. The only thing I can be proud of is that all my children have the same father. No matter how spoiled Billy is, I know that he loves me in his own way and won't leave me. If you lose Ted, what will your life be like? I'm done preaching. But let me tell you this. If you and Ted break up forever, I'll go after him myself. Then I heard Billy laughing loudly. She won't stop, he said. She's just another tramp from the trailer park. I spend every morning with her right after you drop the kids off at school. While you were gone today, she was with me, Tom, and that arrogant mailman at the same time. She's never going to give up. The funny thing is, I honestly think she loves Ted, but she has an itch that needs to be quenched with more than one guy. So she can be devoted to Ted when he's around, but when he's not, it's a completely different story. And Ted is one of those guys who has to keep working and accumulating material. So, he will always work until he can no longer. If she hadn't been on the strongest birth control pills, it's not known how many children she would have had now. Mine, Ted's, and who knows whose else. So if you love her as much as you claim, you'd better join the team and help her keep it a secret. This way, Ted can continue to work for all of us. Then I heard Billy laughing again, and the trailer door opened and closed. Ellie, tell me that what that jerk said is not true, Sally demanded. You didn't sleep with him again this morning, did you? Ellie was silent for a moment, and then she started crying again. I didn't think anyone would find out, she said. I just needed it. Ted didn't touch me or be near me after the show. I couldn't help myself. Please don't tell him. I settled into the plush leather seat of my Mustang, letting the tears flow freely down my face. I turned off the small receiver and disconnected it from the car's auxiliary input. By now, you've probably figured out that the lunch date with Sally was a setup. I had hidden tiny bugs in the lining of the dress and the shoes I bought for her. My plan was for Sally to go home and talk to Ellie about our day, hoping Ellie would give me a hint about her feelings and actions. I thought maybe I could spark a bit of jealousy by buying clothes for her sister. The dress, the bugs, and lunch were a lot cheaper than hiring a private investigator, but my plan backfired and hurt me far more than even watching the Maury show could. I glanced at the woman on the bar stool next to me, who was staring at me with her mouth agape. I placed a $5 bill on the bar and started to get up. The bowling alley should be open by now. Wait, you can't just leave. What happened next? What are you going to do now? You have to tell me how it ended, she implored. I sighed and sat back down. Well, Lisa, she quickly supplied. Right, Lisa. Not every story has a neat ending. This isn't a dime store novel or an online intimacy story. Sometimes you just have to keep moving until the pain fades. But here's what I did. I drove straight to the trailer park. I was only a mile away, as those little bugs don't transmit much farther. I yanked open the trailer door, and as soon as Billy got up, I reached out like I wanted to shake his hand. When he extended his hand, I punched him in the jaw with all my strength. He went down hard. While he was down, I kicked him in the groin, as hard as I could, and then did it again for good measure. Sally and Ellie were too stunned to react. I pulled the receiver from my pocket and plugged it into the trailer's cheap boombox. The sound of their own voices made them listen. The only distraction was Billy moaning on the floor, a growing blood stain spreading over his crotch. Sally, you deserve better than this dump in these people. I know you probably won't take it, but I'm offering you the chance right now. You and your kids can come with me, and we'll leave this all behind, I said. Sally shook her head silently. As I began to leave, Ellie started screaming. What about us? Ted, I love you. I'll leave with you. I'll change. Please don't leave me. Don't divorce me. We can work this out. We have to. I won't let any other women, including my sister, come near you. I'll fight them with my bare hands. Ellie, I said sadly, the worst part is that despite everything I heard on that tape, I still love you. But I also hate you for how you treated me. Sally was right. You don't know what you have until it's gone. But she directed that to the wrong person. You knew what you had. You had a man who loved you, was faithful, and did everything to make you happy. I say had because I'm leaving, and I won't come back. Sally was talking to me. I didn't realize what I had until it was gone, because I believed I had a wife who loved me exclusively and a love that would last a lifetime. But that wasn't the case, was it? And I only discovered that now, as every trace of that love is burned away by what I heard on the tape. I won't tell you what you are because I'm too kind to say it outright. But you are gone. Permanently. Even if I am angry and hurt now and later find I still love you, it won't matter because I'll never trust you again. Without trust, we can't have a marriage. But don't worry about the divorce. On my way here, I called my lawyer and told him to cancel it. I heard their relieved sighs when they learned I had decided not to divorce her. Then I smiled coldly and continued. You don't deserve a divorce. I'm going to handle this trailer park style. I'll just drive away and start fresh somewhere else. Eventually, I'll meet another woman and fall in love again, but I won't marry her. Because of you, I've lost faith in women entirely. Plus, this is better. In a divorce, you would have had rights, a settlement, alimony, and property division. By me just walking away, you get nothing. Not even the house, since it's in my name. All you get is the sight of me leaving your ridiculous self behind. Like this. I left the trailer, got into my Mustang, and drove away. Sally quickly began calling me, suggesting that Ellie might be an intimacy addict like Billy, and proposing that they get her into treatment. I told her not to bother, as I had no interest in a wife who needed to be taught how to stay faithful or keep her legs closed. Over the next few days, Ellie camped out at my workplace and even tracked me down at home. It got to the point where I instructed my lawyer to file for a restraining order. Ellie disregarded it. At one particularly humiliating moment, she clung to my leg while the police tried to remove her. I realized the only way to truly distance myself from her was to leave the state. So, I quit my job and began the process of starting anew. Before leaving town, there were a few things I needed to take care of. Even though I should have risen above such petty matters, I couldn't resist. The next morning, I visited the local post office with my attorney. I played the tape for the postmaster, who turned pale when we mentioned a potential alienation of affection suit and a possible lawsuit against the post office branch. Although we knew we couldn't sue the post office itself because it's a federal entity, the small-town postmaster seemed unaware of this and immediately fired the postal carrier, Ed. He also offered me a high five-figure sum to keep the matter out of court. He acknowledged it wasn't much, but hoped it would help me out, so I agreed. As I was leaving the post office, I saw Ed crying by his locker. I tapped him lightly on the shoulder and then kicked him in the groin. While he was writhing on the floor, I took his wallet and stopped by his apartment to show the tape to his unpleasant wife. She asked for a copy, so I'm sure a divorce was in Ed's future. That left me with Tom for my final bit of petty revenge. Tom took great pride in having the best trailer in the park. He was also one of the few who actually owned his trailer, and his even had wheels. When I arrived at the park without my lawyer, Tom was sitting in front of the trailer where Marilyn and her parents lived. I drove past and headed up the hill to Tom's trailer. Once there, I took the trailer caster from my trunk and attached it to Tom's trailer hitch. A trailer caster is a device that makes it easy to move and reposition trailers. While most trailers roll just fine, the trailer hitch and the small wheels mounted to it can make moving them awkward if they aren't being towed. I quickly attached the caster and cleared away anything like bricks, chalks, or pieces of wood that might obstruct the trailer's movement. Moving the trailer was straightforward. A good push set it rolling down the hill, and gravity did the rest. Tom's trailer was on its way to the lake, and once it started moving, it would be tough to stop, especially since Tom would have to climb the hill and run down the other side to prevent his home from ending up in the lake. It took a minute or two for anyone to notice the trailer rolling, but when they did, they found it hilarious. I had the impression that not many people liked Tom. When the trailer splashed into the lake, everyone gathered around to watch it sink. Tom arrived, breathless from his run, cursing and furious. "Relax, Tom," someone said. "Your insurance will cover it." Tom didn't have any insurance. Someone else had started a grill, and they were all roasting hot dogs while watching Tom's trailer sink. I guess some people will do anything for a bit of entertainment. I took Tom away from the scene, and he followed me. He likely didn't realize that I knew about his affair with Ellie. You might think I was planning to kick him in the nuts too, but I didn't. Instead, I said, "This is for Ellie," and hit Tom in the stomach with such force that he bent over. Then I delivered an uppercut that felt like it started in Mississippi and traveled all the way up through Chicago. Boxers might understand what I mean by that. That uppercut knocked Tom out cold, and then I kicked him in the nuts. With my anger released, I had no reason to stay in that city, so I decided to move on to better opportunities. Before leaving town, I sold off all my assets, including both houses and everything we had accumulated during the marriage. Anything I couldn't sell, I burned. I know it's illegal according to the legal experts, but I didn't care then, and I still don't. I left Ellie without a cent. I even burned all her clothes. However, I did leave Sally a few $1,000s for emergencies and an anonymous email address where she could occasionally contact me. After that, I left town and haven't looked back. I avoid staying in one place long enough for her to find me. With the money from selling the houses and my assets, I have a decent financial cushion. I easily find work as an engineer wherever I go, and if I can't, I just move on. I transferred my retirement account into a self-directed IRA so I can continue contributing. Someday I'll settle down and find someone, but that probably won't happen until the pain from Ellie fades away. I hear from Sally occasionally, and every time she mentions Ellie, it brings back all the old pain. Billy is now completely devoted to Sally, although he has no choice in the matter. He suffers because of my well-aimed punches. He still doesn't have a job. Sally says Ellie still loves me and wants me back. Ellie appeared on Maury again, claiming to be pregnant and searching for the father of her child. In reality, she wasn't pregnant. She just wanted the show to use its resources to find me. She says she doesn't want money, just to get me back. I stay out of the spotlight because those TV shows have a lot of resources, including private investigators, and I don't want them finding me and giving her any information about my whereabouts. Sometimes, I'll stay with a woman for a few nights or more, but I haven't found anyone who can replace Ellie in my heart. I'll probably love that skinny, flat-chested trailer park girl until the day I die, but I can't live with her or be around her. So for now, it's just me and my Mustang, traveling across the country one town at a time. Even now, a year later, every time I see a scrawny redhead, a tear falls down my cheek, and I know I'm still not over her. I'm sure she's probably been with half the trailer park and a good portion of the city by now. I know this isn't the ending you wanted or expected. In fact, it's not much of an ending at all. If you want a better conclusion, you have my permission to write one. Lisa tilted her head back and finished her beer. She was an attractive woman with long, dark hair and strikingly clear blue eyes. "You're definitely not what I expected," she said, "but you'll do." She reached into her purse and pulled out a cell phone, a gun, and a badge. License. As she dialed a number on the phone, I glanced at the badge. She wasn't a cop. She was a licensed private detective. "Yeah, this is Lisa," she said into the phone. Another dead end. He's not in this town either. There was a guy here with a Mustang, but it's the wrong color, the wrong year, and he's too old to be him. I'm telling you, Marty, I'm done. I don't want to spend the rest of my life tracking down other people's spouses. It's time I found my own, so I'm quitting. Tell the redhead and everyone from the show that I don't think this guy is ever going to show up. She's wasting Maury's money and her life looking for him. Lisa left the bar, leaving her gun, badge, and phone behind. "So, let's see this Mustang," she said. I nodded and smiled as we headed for the door. 6 weeks later, I realized I was in trouble. I hadn't thought about Ellie once since Lisa and I drove away from the bar. I told Lisa about it one morning as she emerged from the shower, with her large breasts swaying from side to side. She just smiled and said, "Maybe the reason you don't have an ending to the Ellie story is because you missed it." The end of Ted and Ellie happened when you walked away from the Maury show. Your marriage was over. The rest was just the epilogue. You haven't been looking for the end of Ted and Ellie for a long time. What you were searching for was the beginning of the Ted and Lisa story. This story is about you and me and our family someday, and this one will last for the rest of our lives.